Traveling is one of my favorite things to do, but let's be honest, it can get real expensive fast. Between flights, food, and sneaky hidden fees, your travel budget can disappear quicker than your luggage on a connecting flight. So in this video, I'm sharing the exact money system that I use when I travel, including how I budget, what card I use, and how we avoid overspending, so that we can enjoy our travels without the guilt. So let's dive in. Number one is to budget first, not last. Before booking any flights or hotels, I always do a budget first. I set aside 15% of my income every single month for travel, and I automate it too so I don't even have to think about it. That money goes into a high interest savings account, and then when it's time to travel, I move that money into my Wise account, which essentially becomes our travel wallet. It keeps our travel spending organized, and it also separates it from the rest of our finances. Wise even allows you to hold multiple different currencies so you can start preparing before you leave. For example, we recently went to Vietnam and we pre-converted some money from Australian dollars into Vietnamese dong. It was so easy and upfront, and it was way better than getting ripped off at the airport. The next step is how we manage our money when we're traveling overseas. We always travel with Wise, who are also the sponsor of today's video. When we've been overseas, we actually did a few tests with multiple different cards to see which one was the best value for money. And Wise often comes out ahead because it saves us so much money on fees. And here's why I love it. You can hold over 40 different currencies in one account. They are super transparent about their fees, and there are no hidden charges buried in bad exchange rate. This was a mistake that I used to make before. I used to get a travel money card that advertised no fees, but what I realized was they actually gave you a really bad exchange rate. So while you technically weren't paying for fees, you actually were getting a bad exchange rate for your money. And another perk is that Wise works with Apple Pay and Google Pay, even if you forget your physical card. The exchange rate that you get with Wise is the mid-market rate, unlike traditional banks that can sometimes add sneaky markups. We use Wise whenever we travel overseas, and honestly, I don't think I could ever go back to using a debit card or a travel card. Like for example, Pablo's mum lives in France, and she sent Pablo some money for Gia's birthday, and we were actually able to send her our Wise account details so that she could deposit euros in our account. And then next time we're in Europe, we're actually able to use these euros in our account without paying for any additional fees. This year, we're also super excited to go to Tomorrowland, and we're going with some friends who already live in Europe. One of our friends actually bought our tickets for Tomorrowland, and we were really easily able to pay her back for those tickets and send her euros straight from our Wise account. And the great news is, when someone sends you a different currency, you don't have to convert it into your home currency. You can simply just leave that currency in your account, and then the next time you go to visit that country, you can spend that currency. That way you don't have to pay currency exchange fees twice. And this has honestly saved us so much money over the years. This is a really amazing perk, especially if you do have friends or family overseas, and if you would like to send them money, or if they would like to send you money. And super exciting news, Wise has actually just introduced Wise Interest. Give your money a boost with interest. Currently, it's just available for AUD balances and US balances. The current rates for interest are 3.16% on Australian balances and 3.25% on US balances, depending on the interest rates at the time. So here's more information about how it works. With interest, your money is invested in a fund holding government guaranteed assets, like government bonds. These are low risk investments compared to something like shares or property. When you switch on interest with your Wise account, your returns are added to your investment every day, and you can use them right away. And the great news is, with interest, you don't need to lock your money away. You can use it exactly the same way as you normally would and spend your money whenever you like. So if you already have US dollars in your interest account, you don't need to pay currency exchange fees when you are spending your US dollars. I personally think this is a really great product, especially with inflation and the rising cost of living. As we know, each year our currency essentially gets devalued. So being able to earn interest on the balances that we do have sitting in these accounts is amazing. But I'm curious to hear from you. What do you think about this? And if you'd like to learn more about Wise Interest, I've put a link in the description below. So this next part is key, and it's how I avoid overspending whenever I am traveling. There was this one time I went to Thailand, and I arrived really late at the airport, and I was quite tired and jet lagged, and I just wanted a meal. So I walked into a restaurant, not really thinking that it would be very expensive because it wasn't a very fancy place, and I made a huge mistake, which was I didn't really check how much the meal would cost me in my home currency because I assumed it wouldn't be that expensive since we were in Thailand. But then at the end of the meal, the bill came, and I realized that I had just spent $171 on an airport meal. It was crazy, and it honestly was not even a fancy meal. So that's why I always like to double check the currencies in advance, so that way I don't fall for any tourist traps. I like to do mini budget check-ins throughout the trip. As I mentioned before, I usually preload my Wise account with some money that I'm happy to spend through the trip. And the really good thing is, with the Wise app, you can easily see how much money you've spent on your trip and how you're going with your budget. You can also really easily see in the Wise app how much money it would cost you if you were to buy something. So So if you're looking to buy something for say 10 euros, you can really easily see in the Wise app exactly how much money that would cost you in your home currency. And if we're overspending, we tend to slow down, and say if we're underspending, then maybe it's time for something like a massage. Wise is very kindly sponsoring this video, and if you would like to try them for yourself, you can use my link in the description below for a fee-free transfer of up to $1,000. It's honestly the best travel money card that I've ever used, and I'd recommend it even if this wasn't a sponsored video. And a bonus tip is to choose travel destinations with a lower cost of living. A site that I love is numbeo.com, and you can easily see how much things cost in different countries. So for example, $1,000 in Vietnam can take you way further than $1,000 in a high cost of living place like the US. Something that I've noticed is I often look for cheap flights, and one day I saw some really cheap flights to Fiji, and we were considering going there. We've been there before, by the way, it is amazing. But what we noticed was during this period was the hotels in Fiji were around $400 per night. So while you do save money on flights, you end up spending more money on accommodation. So it's definitely something to keep in mind, especially if you do want your money to stretch further. With Wise, you can also preview the exchange rates just so you know what you're in for. And don't forget, if you would like to try Wise for yourself, you can use my link in the description below for a fee-free transfer of up to $1,000. Thanks so much for making it all the way to the end of the video, and write Tomorrowland in the comments so I know you made it all the way to the end of the video.